All right. Well, we are going to get started. Welcome, everyone, to our last building forward of 2023. This is the Visionality team. And what we're going to do today is just go through some lessons learned from the year and some predictions going forward. And we're just going to go one by one with each member of the team. So, Taryn, you are up first. So I'd like to introduce Taryn. She's a project manager of events, and she's got some lessons learned. And we're going to spotlight her. There she is.
Oh, I feel so special going first. Yeah, hi, I'm Taryn Choquette, project manager, events, fundraising, and comms. So my biggest lessons, well, some of my biggest lessons for 2023 were basically COVID and just emergency situations in general are not in the past. They're just part of everyday life now. And frankly, there is less support. There's still, breakouts of COVID, other things happening going on that you have to deal with at events. And people really aren't as prepared, whether it be like with masks or COVID tests or, just like having the staff support to deal with situations. So it's just really important to have a plan in place because the emergency situation could be with attendee at one of your events. It could be with a staff member. You just never really know. So just knowing in advance what you're going to do if something happens is just more important than ever. People are short staffed and yeah, it's just, you just have to plan for what you don't know will happen, which is always so much fun to do. And it's not necessarily the sexiest way to spend money, but you have to be prepared and you have to have your budget reflect that really.
Yeah, I think for me, like taking a huge step back, it just feels like there is no extra bandwidth. There's no extra anything, anywhere at all for anybody. And so it takes very little for a plan to go off track because there is no wiggle room. You mentioned being understaffed and budgets, and there's just right now it feels like there's nothing extra.
Yeah, people have like cut the fluff really from budgets, from staffing. They're taking the bare minimum of who they need to put on an event. They're paying for the bare minimum of what they need to put on an event. And, that leaves you no wiggle room to if something goes awry. So one of our favorite things to do is always have a floater. So someone who isn't like tied to a specific location or a specific task at all times, that's able to like go around and troubleshoot and just make sure things are as they should be, or if something comes up, they can be a runner. So that's something that we do at Visionality to kind of accommodate that and plan for that.
Yeah. And unfortunately,
we're flexible.
We're seeing it kind of all across the board, right? Within staffs, but also at venues, at catering, at AV, all of the vendors. So it's not just located in one area. It really is across the board. And so this in a way, I feel like we used to be able to kind of step back and be like, well, if a AV tech doesn't show up, well, that's fine. Like that's their problem. Not anymore. It's our problem now. They don't have an extra AV tech to send in necessarily. So yeah, it just feels quite different. And what do you think the prediction is? Or is this going to be, it's going to be fixed, right? Next year?
I mean, honestly, like who knows? Like I really thought in 2022 things were kind of like on the up and up. But I think I maybe didn't really realize like how big of an impact that the like trickle down from understaffing really affected everything. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't say whether or not it's going to be fixed. I wish I had that crystal ball. But what I do know is that, I mean, prices are just going to keep going up because people are just doing the same thing with less people, and they're trying to maintain staff. So they're trying to pay people more, and, you know, food distribution, that costs more. Your food prices are going to go up at venues, AV, rentals, everything. Prices are just going up. So I think in nonprofit world, especially, people's favorite budgeting trick is to just plug in the numbers from last year. And I just like really don't think that that is a smart way to budget, because you're just going to end up going over. And like, I used to say you get what you pay for, but now you kind of get less than what you pay for. Like, if you need to, you know, hire an extra server, or, you know, rent extra chairs because things arrive broken and you have, you know, you don't have any wiggle room with your number of chairs, things like that. So just put that into your budgets and prepare early. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to pass along that cost to like attendees at a conference. And like, it's hard because it's like people want to protect their attendees from rising costs, but as consultants, like, we want to protect your organization from being in the red. So, you know, I just think just smart budgeting, account for overage at least 10%, honestly, and just be prepared to pass that cost along, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Well, and I feel like especially this year, we have felt events come back. People want to be in person. They
For
want to
sure.
so events are back, and you
Yeah.
need to increase your budget because everyone is raising their prices. And so if you do that magical trick of just plugging in the new numbers, you will not have the same event. You may not have a successful event. It certainly is not the time to try and reduce an event budget. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
could be a great opportunity to expand sponsorships for the events, or look for some underwriting grants, or find some low cost upgrades for attendees, something where you can sort of get more bang for your buck on the revenue side. But events are here to stay. They are back in full swing, and you need to increase your budget by 10%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Any other predictions or lessons learned?
Ooh, I mean, probably, but for this, I think we're good.
Excellent. Taryn, thank you so much, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, next we have our colleague, Katie.
Hi. I'm Katie Pearson. I'm the Senior Project Manager for our fundraising and communications. Yeah, hi.
Hi. I'm sure you learned a few lessons this year.
Just a few.
Yeah. What you
Yeah,
got?
I mean, I truly want to kind of go backwards with you and Taryn. Like, absolutely, fundraising events are back in full swing. We have pretty much eliminated hybrid and virtual events. Everything is back in person. Galas are back. Luncheons are back. The whole shebang. The silent auctions, the live auctions. It is back in full force, with very little concern of COVID. It seems like we've kind of moved past it, and people are totally comfortable being in giant ballrooms again. And I think my other biggest lesson and prediction all at the same time comes from AI. We've seen a huge trend in its capacity over the last year, with being able to write content for staff that is totally stretched thin. You may not have a separate person working in marketing and a person in development. You probably have somebody doing both. And AI seems to be a tool that a lot of organizations are using to kind of bridge that gap to quickly churn out content. So I really think in the next year, we're going to see a big uptick in the usage of it. However, I worry about it because it's not as creative as obviously humans can be. And it's
unable to be novel, like full stop, because it is a large language model. It is unable to be novel. It cannot be novel. It can combine old things, but it cannot be novel. Continue.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to, unfortunately, I think, cross a line into a few organizations maybe using the exact same language, because it is only as smart as what you put into it. So if you put in the same thing that maybe another organization that's similar to you put in, it's going to spit out the same thing. So I think really being wise to that is important if you're going to implement AI into your routine and into your organization. But I think it's going to be a way that a lot of people are going to be able to churn out grant applications and get their social media up and going and getting those newsletters turned out on time. So I really think we're going to see a big uptick in the usage, and I just hope everybody uses it wisely.
Yeah, we at Visionality have really started diving deep into AI and exploring it. And so full stop, it is a B+ at best. You know, whatever it puts out first draft is a B+ at best. It cannot be novel. It's a great place to start. So I like to compare it to a calculator, right? Before we had a calculator and later a phone, human beings did long division, right? And now we can just plug it into the calculator. And again, as long as your input is correct, you can get the right answer out. But the tool is only as strong as the inputs and the knowledge of the person using it. A couple of webinars that I've been on about AI have predicted that in the next 2 years, AI competence will be a core factor in hiring. In the same way that, you know, historically we have, when we're hiring new people, we ask them what their competency is in Excel, right? It's a tool. How do you know how to use this tool? Do you know how to maximize this tool? Do you know how to have it do work for you and automate things? In the same way, they are predicting that AI competence will be one of those key hiring preferences, that you have worked with it, you know how to work with it, and you know how to use it as a tool to increase efficiency, and not just put out B+ at best, right? It is not finished. Do not use it as finished. It's a great starting place. It is not a finished product, and it's only as good as the person using it and the prompts that you give it.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good place to start, like you mentioned. You know, some of us have that blank page fear of, you know, getting over that hurdle of writing the first few lines, paragraphs, whatever it is. And so I do think that it is helpful to be able to have a starting point that you may scrap the entire thing, but maybe one theme, one word triggered something in you, or maybe you're able to reassemble it in a much more coherent and clear way. So I think it's a really great tool to get over the blank page stumbling block that some of us do have.
Yeah, and just as Visionality is exploring this, I'm going to encourage everyone, just start using it. Set up an OpenAI account and just plug things into it and just see what happens, right? And just use it, don't use it, whatever, but just plug it in and see what happens.
Yeah.
I see my friend Tim has his hand raised, so I am
Here
wondering
I
if
am.
he might have some
It-
experience.
Is it okay to interrupt?
Please, it is always. We all have the answers collectively. Give it to us.
Okay, great. Okay, great. I thought that was interesting the way Katie put it, and I think you followed up, Em. You said it's only as smart as what you put in. I think I frame it differently. It's only as smart as what you ask it to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, just one small example that I was listening to this podcast I thought was just excellent on why your meetings suck. Not this one, Emily. This one's great. By the way, Em, every time I see that background of yours, I think that you're in a Japanese restaurant, barefoot, sitting on a cushion, about to drink a bowl of miso soup or something. Is that?
Maybe I am.
Are you?
It's a real
I thought you might be.
Schrodinger's cat situation over here.
So I was listening to this podcast on why everyone's meetings suck except Emily's. And when I got back to my desk, I put into AI, I said, can you write me a summary of this podcast? And I put in the URL. And it told me that, it was too long to write the summary I was looking for, but here were some of the key points of that podcast based on the transcript it found. And I said, okay. I said, I've got a meeting with a group of business leaders in a month. This is what they do. Can you write me an exercise that would improve their meetings? And it came back with a 90-minute exercise that was broken out into 10 to 20-minute intervals on, how we would organize that, the questions we would ask, what each segment would do. And I thought to myself, those 2 acts alone might have taken me about 4 hours.
100%.
Right.
And
So
it's not done, but it's a starting place. And it's not the worst starting place in the whole world.
Well, I got to tell you, that exercise that you drew for me, that's done. I'm doing it. So I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Yeah, let it
Thanks
It is
for
a
letting me
total
interrupt.
time saver. And I mean,
Yeah.
had you spent 4 hours of your time trying to come up with that, that's 4 hours that you maybe could have used in a better capacity somewhere else. And so it is absolutely efficient, and especially for, one solo shop, or, a really stretched thin staff.
Ashley, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I would just add it can be a really good idea generator as well, or kind of get you out of your own head. Like if you have to write a blog or an article or social media post, and you just say give me 10 reasons that blah, blah, blah. The 10 that you may come up with personally and the 10 that AI come up with are maybe two, you may all of a sudden have 20 and be able to pick 10 of the very best. So that's where I've really been able to utilize AI, is just to get out of my own head and get that different perspective from somebody without having to pick up the phone and be like, hey, Emily, tell me your 10 best, and it turns into a 2-hour conversation, which is great. I love that. But it's also really nice just to get it spit out in 20 seconds. And it's almost like that really smart business friend that you have without having to maintain an actual relationship. No sub for the real business friend, but I really appreciated just a whole different perspective.
Yeah. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah. And I mean, saving time, if you were to even just do the research on the other top 10 reasons why AI is great, you're gonna go down 6 different articles looking at all of those top 10s and then compare it to yours. So yeah, I totally agree.
It's also can be outdated, right? Reading articles, especially in 2023, you can be pulling articles up on AI and they're 6 months old, but they might as well be 20 years old. Yep. Whereas if you're just asking AI itself, it's the most up-to-date answers that you're getting.
Yeah.
Yep. I am very cautious about AI within hiring because the internet and language has bias built into it, and therefore because AI is generating out of biased materials, it will be biased. And so that's an area, I've heard of organizations using AI to pre-screen applicants, to read resumes, that kind of stuff. But that still does concern me, just like that human component. I've heard of job applicants doing keyword stuffing in white text at the bottom of their resume, so you can't see it with your eyes, but the AI generator will pick it up. So I'm just, that is, the implicit bias is something that concerns me, and it's a known issue, and we're working through it. But again, it's an incredible tool. It adds efficiency. Just use it with caution. Yeah. Katie, you have one more prediction.
Yes, my last one, and I'll keep it brief so we can move on, but I think capital campaigns are going to resurge in 2024. I think, a lot of potential capital campaigns really did get put on hold through the pandemic. And now, as funding is looking a little bit more normal and rooted back into a good steady pattern. And I think that a lot of organizations are going to start thinking about expansions, renovations, new locations, and taking on some of these really big dollar campaigns. So I'm interested to see where that goes, but it's, I think, going to be an exciting time of growth for some of these institutions who have been really playing a safe game and a really good financial game with their funds through some tough times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we as consultants, we have a interesting sort of backdoor view into things that organizations are working on. And so it does feel like there's a lot of momentum around fundraising and capital campaigns. And we've, just like we talked about with Taryn, we've been making do with less, and we can't do it anymore. It's time for a serious investment. There's just a lot of movement, and we've heard about quite a few capital campaigns entering the silent phase. So there's a lot happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it'll be fun to see.
We'll see. All right. Thank you, Katie. Up next, we have our colleague, Jeanette. Jeanette, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeanette Villanueva, and I am the Senior Project Manager of Strategy, and happy to be here.
Excellent.
One of the things that resonated with me is that when you save those 4 hours doing AI, you have more time to take care of yourself.
You do. You do. Talk to me about how that's looked for you over the last year, because Jeanette, you just celebrated your 1-year anniversary with us. And so, give me some lessons learned around that.
Well, for me, personal well-being has become really important. And I think because of my experience, I've worked in a lot of demanding positions over the many years. And then I was working in healthcare all through COVID in person, and it was a really stressful situation. And I think what I learned is, and I'm still learning, it's a process to take care of my own personal well-being, that it's important, and it really brings home the importance of your mental, physical well-being. And I'm really learning to prioritize that. I mean, every day I'm just learning it. I think when I came to Visionality, it was a conscious choice that after going through that pandemic and enduring the stress and really burning the candle at both ends, that I wanted to be like many have already taken those steps, and that really set myself up in a position where I could be in more control over my schedule, over in my own time.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was a really conscious decision. When I came to Visionality, I really resonated with the culture. I felt like the values lined up, and So I'm here, and like I said, I'm still learning. I learned from you when you said, put your walks on your calendar, so but it's been a very important lesson for me.
Yep. 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 Excellent. And what predictions do you have for next year?
Well, I think people are going to continue to want to work more at home and to really prioritize their own well-being. I think we're going to continue to see people looking for at least hybrid and remote positions that offer flexibility and give people time to, hobby and go outside and garden and take care of their family members. I think it's great for stay-at-home moms with families. It's great for people caretaking, and it's really great for people who just, want to have a life that is, richer with more, more activities and more fulfilling time for yourself.
Well, and more values aligned.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we're also seeing a lot of turnover and a lot of movement in the employment sector. In the same way, as a consultant, we sort of have this backdoor view of things, and in the same way that we're seeing a lot of capital campaigns happening, we're also seeing a lot of people just quietly job hunting. And one of the things they're looking for, they haven't quit their job, but they're open to a new opportunity. And one of the things that they are looking for is work-life balance. They want at least hybrid, if not fully remote. And so in our continual quest to attract, hire, and retain top talent, this kind of work-life balance and flexibility is proving to be really important to talented job seekers.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's really bringing around people that may have been really concerned about, not trusting employees when they're working at home, or, just kind of traditional office setting positions. So I think that's really good that it's brought people around to think about that and to use more technology like Zoom, to stay in touch and have that that face-to-face kind of meeting. And I think that it's also made, the times that we spend in person and together even more important, and special. It's kind of like, when we started sending email blasts, and then getting that personal card really makes a difference when you see it in your mailbox. So, for me, it's an ongoing thing that I'm learning, and I think I probably always will be learning it,
Yeah.
as I as I grow
Yeah.
and continue to try and improve myself.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeanette. All right.
Course.
Our next guest star is Delaney. Hi, Delaney. Introduce yourself. Oh, you're muted, Delaney.
I'm so sorry. I'm Delaney Rodriguez. I'm the operations coordinator at VISIONALITY.
Excellent. What lessons did you learn this year?
So I learned a big one. I moved from California out to Michigan at the beginning of the year. So I had to learn how to work not only fully remote, but also with a 3-hour time difference. And thankfully, everyone at Visionality is just awesome at working with me through that. We have clear communication and just kind of constant communication to make sure we're all on the same page. My day starts a little earlier and ends a little earlier than everyone else. So I just have to make sure that I'm communicating all of that with the team. And there have been a couple of hiccups, but I think it's been pretty good.
It has, and it's so funny. I'm going to bring us back to the webinar that we did with Tony Briggs from Red Cross, and how having employees in different areas actually increases resiliency. There's also, having as a micro company, Visionality has 8 employees. Having out-of-state employees is quite expensive, just like full stop, out of state employees are expensive. And when you have top talent, it can be worth it in order to retain them. And so I have seen a couple other small organizations hire out of state employees without understanding like the administrative burden that it puts on the company, and it is significant. And so I also don't want anyone to just, willy-nilly hire a bunch of out-of-state workers, but for top talent, it's absolutely worth it. And then you can just build that into your business model to say, we hire people from California and Michigan.
Yeah, no, and that brings me to my prediction. I do think that it's going to be a push from workers to want to be able to move, especially, places in California, move out of the area, move out of the state. It's really expensive. And having done the move, it is a lot, going back to that personal well-being Jeanette was talking about. I'm able to do a lot more outside of work because I was able to move here. And and I'm on the operation side of it. So I do know the struggles that it can create within businesses. So yeah, that's definitely important but I do think you need to factor it in, and retaining and attracting top talent is going to be, you're going to have to look possibly outside of the area that you're working in.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you very much, Delaney.
Thanks.
All right. Up next, we have Nico. Hi, Nico.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I am the fundraising and communications project manager here at VISIONALITY, and I'm second to last in line.
Excellent. So what lessons did you learn this year?
So my lessons are primarily from my own personal experience lenses, kind of having to both kind of having to do with sort of events and the remote versus in-person dynamics. So at least for me personally, it took a lot of effort to sort of reemerge into the world, to go to the networking events and to the sorts of galas and those kind of events as a fully remote employee. It was a little disorienting the first time to be like around people for more than 30 minutes at a time, but
Yeah.
it was worth it. And it can be kind of nice to sort of stretch that networking muscle. Again, is good for me. And I also learned that like in events, it was touched on earlier, but there is a real pent up demand for more in-person events, I think. Even though COVID is sort of waning and we're not really in the pandemic stage anymore. People just want to get back out there, be amongst their friends and their peers, which is great. But Taryn touched on this a lot earlier, that it's sort of the finances and the dynamics of those events are changing. And so I think they're going to require more thoughtfulness and more care, and kind of just not going back to what always worked pre-COVID. I think there will be a lot of sort of experimenting and throwing things at the wall to see what sticks in terms of engaging folks at events in a really creative way.
Well, and one thing that was really interesting throughout our events this year was, all of our clients wanted to go fully in person and not fund a hybrid option. Maybe we'll record it and make it available offline, but it really was, the focus was entirely back on in-person interactions. But then both on the attendee and the speaker side, if something came up, someone did get COVID or got sick in another way, or someone's family got sick or their plane got canceled or whatever, they just assumed that there would be a hybrid option. Oh, like, can I just give my presentation on Zoom? But that infrastructure didn't exist. So we're just in a really interesting paradigm right now where everyone is just planning an in-person event, but now we're missing the sort of safety net that hybrid offered to us. And so it'll just be interesting to see this next couple of years how that balances out. You know, we saw really strong positives and negatives of being remote and of being in person. So where's that funding priority? Where will the budget priorities end? And I think specifically in your realm, Nico, for fundraising events, same thing. You know, if I'm planning on attending a fundraising event, but I can't go for whatever reason, what is the either day of engagement that I can still have with the organization? Because if your only plan is to ask me for a gift if I attend the breakfast, but something, you know, my kid gets sick and I can't attend the breakfast, well, maybe you're missing out on my donation because you don't have a plan for if someone isn't able to physically attend.
Right. Yeah. And even just, that's right, Dorothy. Lost my train of thought. Even just sort of to put a bow on this in terms of events, there were a couple events that I went to and there are different formats, but the main thing I heard from other people was like they wish there was more time just to network and whatever. Like if there's a program, for example, like the program took too long and people just want to like socialize. So I guess even if it's a big fundraiser, kind of making the potentially scary choice to give more time for people to chit chat and hang out and just to have fun is something that organizations would do well to potentially implement going forward in their events.
Yeah, like don't put on a program just as an excuse to get people in a room. People don't need an excuse to get in a room because we want to get in rooms with the people that we've missed. So, you know, don't feel like you need to fill 90 minutes of time to make it worth someone attending your event.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. And what predictions do you have?
Well, this prediction is not, it's not cheerful. But I just think fundraising across the board is going to be harder in 2024 because we are steering headfirst into the abyss that is also known as a federal presidential election. That is going to be, it's already unpleasant. It's going to be stressful and messy and chaotic. And that's just speaking beyond any sort of political terms. It's just like election season is just not fun. It's a grind for all of us involved. So fundraising is just going to be harder and people are going to be stretched thin with their dollars and going to be asked to give to a lot of different candidates no matter the stripe. And so kind of making the ask as an organization will be tougher because you're competing with it sounds a little crass, but you're competing with political candidates who are running for office and there are only so many dollars in the world and they're not going as far as they used to. So just sort of being more careful and more thoughtful, more creative with how you ask for those dollars that come at the expense of candidates will be tougher. But you know, our organizations are worth it.
Yeah, I mean, a presidential campaign is essentially a capital campaign, right? And historically, what we've seen in nonprofit fundraising during presidential election years is funding really changes. And so if you are a nonprofit whose mission is political or has been politicized, you should expect to see donations go up. But if you do not have a mission that has been politicized, you should expect to see donations go down. So it's just a really weird moment to be fundraising, to be embarking on a capital campaign, to be re-engineering your events. It's just gonna be a different year coming up.
So settle in and be prepared for a little bit of strife, but will be worth it and we'll get through there on the other side.
Buckle up.
Yeah. So this is, and I see in the chat too, before I turn the tables, Ashley, you were correct too about local politics. And arguably that's even more, not detriment's not the right word, but like some of the folks running for local office are board members of organizations and are the ones that are going to be asking other board members and their friends for contributions to their campaigns too. So it even starts locally, because all politics are local. So this is the part of the program where I turn the tables, and I become the interviewer with Emily as our interviewee. So Emily, I don't think you need to introduce yourself, but I will give you the floor to share your lessons learned from this year.
Yeah, my biggest lesson learned was how much I believe that our team approach is the right approach for consultants. Visionality is a team. We take a team approach. Any client gets work done on their project from nearly every member of this team. And that's not true for every consultancy. And just some of the work that we've done this year, some of the unexpected bumps in the road have just led me to this like deep appreciation, and even deeper appreciation of this team structure and the resiliency that it creates for our company, for our employees, and for our clients. Because things pop up, people go on vacations, people have babies, people get sick, people take on new opportunities. And so really I'm proud of this team and the collaborative way that we work in order to support one another as people and employees, but also make sure that our clients get their work done on time and to a really high level, right? Because each of us only has one set of experiences or skill sets or perspectives, but by working with a firm, our firm or any other firm, you really benefit from a much greater set of skills and lived experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for. I agree. As part of the team member, this is a good approach. I'm only a little biased. And then finally, to cap us off and keeping in theme, what are some predictions you have for 2024 as it pertains to our industry?
Yeah, so my one big prediction is that we will continue to see and feel a lot of uncertainty just in general in the world, and we're going to experience shifts based on values alignment. And so I think a lot of us were just sort of holding on for dear life from, through the last 3 years, and maybe living in some friction. And now, as opportunities present themselves that are more in line with our personal values, we're going to continue to see shifts towards people building alignment within their lives and their values in, through friendships, through where they shop, through who they vote for, through what job they do, what community they engage with. I think we're just going to start to continue to see just little adjustments to help people live more integrated lives.
Yeah, definitely.
And expanding on that specifically to the nonprofit industry, this is a wild prediction and not everyone agrees with me, but I believe within the next 5 years, we will have nonprofit unions. And I believe that year by year, we will start to see very big shifts in the expectations of working conditions for nonprofit employees. We're starting to, the first indicator of that is that, everyone's silently looking for a job, right? And that's to be more in alignment with their own personal values, but just this general openness to what's the next new opportunity. Working nonprofit employees are continue to be burnt out. We are frontline workers responding to emergency after emergency, but we're not treated like frontline workers. And it, someone's got to give.
That's it seems a little far afield, but union kind of collective bargaining power. And obviously there's Hollywood strikes in Hollywood, like just collective labor was a big theme of 2023. So it's not too far afield to see it move into our space next year because it kind of was everywhere else.
Well, and Delaney mentioned it, like if plain and simple dollars and cents, a human being cannot afford to work a nonprofit job and live in California, they will leave the sector or leave the state, right? Money is money. You can't pay your bills with like, well, you helped someone today. And we have a mismatch right now where nonprofit workers cannot afford to live in the place that they work. So something has to change. Something has to give. We're either going to lose top talent, which we already are, or we're going to continue to see people moving out of the state. Yeah, Jeanette put in the chat that economists are seeing people leaving Ventura County. And Katie said, I think nonprofit employees are finally going to draw a line in the sand of unwillingness to continue to accept low pay and high expectations. Absolutely. We can't expect people who are being asked to live in poverty to solve poverty. Like something's got to give. And then my final prediction is back about AI. It's time to start playing with it and just seeing what's happening with it. And I believe, like I mentioned, in the next 2 years, it's going to be a core skill that employers are hiring for, or an expectation that you have some competence in utilizing AI to increase your to improve your work or increase the speed at which you can work. Yeah.
Right on. This is where I turn it back over to you, so you can be you again, and I can stop being Emily.
All right, thank you, Nico. I appreciate you. So I'm going to open it up. We've had a few guest stars pop in to share their lessons learned and predictions. So does anyone else have a lesson learned or a prediction that they want to share with the group, or some thoughts or some questions? Tim posted in the chat that Matthew Feenup's economic presentation this year focuses on talented people who have left the state. Unfortunately, yes, I do believe so. Yeah. Oh, Ashley's got something. Hello, friend.
Yeah, I would just say not so much lessons learned, but more of just like an observation in terms of employees drawing lines in the sand of their unwillingness to accept low pay and having high expectations. That's really been across the board in every single industry. Mm-hmm. So from where I stand, working for the Chamber of Commerce, it's really interesting to see every single industry be impacted by lack of employees or lack of qualified employees, and really employees just saying like, I'm not going to do this anymore. So everything from like government, like education is struggling, to fast food workers, to nonprofits, to medical care. It's like there's these huge shortages across the board. And my positive prediction for 2024 would be that we found some way to remedy that. Expectations might like budge a little bit, and then like the employers can come up quite a bit, and we can get back to a place where business can function and society can function at a normal level, because it is quite frightening. And then 2024 predictions, I mean, yeah, I would agree with Nico 100%. Just election year, like, always brings out the craziness in everyone. And then also just trying to do business as normal in election years is always really interesting. So yeah. I would probably echo what Nico said. I think fundraising will be hard. I think we're probably set up for another hard year. I feel like we're going to continue to see some businesses close as well, which translates to just overall uncertainty. When your favorite shops are closing downtown or in Midtown, I think people tend to think that, it's the end of the world, or that things are not secure, when in reality, what we're hearing from businesses that are closing is just that they're just done. Like it's just been a really rough decade, and that they're just done, and employment is hard. And so if they don't have employees, then they're the ones working the front line and they don't want to do it. So that's my predictions. And thank you guys so much. This has been really, really fun to listen in. I'm glad I could make it.
Thanks, Ashley. All right. Who else? Questions, comments, lessons learned, predictions. Anybody got something?
Yeah.
Yes.
First of all, this was pleasantly, surprisingly insightful and deep. There was some really good stuff in this. Thank you for bringing the team on. It was great. But my downer is that, we have a government shutdown either threatened or happening about every 2 months now. And you saw today that I think there's 12 moderate Republicans not running for re-election. So, who's going to swoop in and take those seats? I think we're really going to have a dysfunctional federal government over the next few years. And it's going to be hard down here at the local level when, we're reliant on military bases, on schools that rely on federal funding and that sort of thing. This dysfunction in Washington is really going to trickle down to us in some not so great ways over the next few years. So I think that's going to be tough. And the second thing I would say is that in the nonprofit sector, the more, the smarter, more relevant nonprofit groups, I think, are starting to focus on long-term solutions to significant issues rather than trying to raise enough money for next year's budget to keep us going. Two that I know well, I noticed at Habitat, Darcy has completely changed the model of raising money to build houses and gone to lenders. And so that he's always got a source of funds to create his building projects. And among the many great things BCCF does, that Isabella project in Santa Paula, which will take years to bear fruit. But the notion that we can start educating every young child, giving them every child from between the ages of 2 to 5 gets early childhood education, is that kind of move that creates lasting impact in the community. And the more moves we make like that in the for-profit and nonprofit and government sectors, the better off we'll be as a society. And so those are my 2 gems for the day.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to your first prediction in terms of government funding instability. I think the general public has really no idea how many of our local social safety net organizations rely on federal funding, and that not only, if that check is uncertain, not only does that make the continuum of care uncertain, but also employment, right? So, if literally some of the building blocks of our social safety net, it comes down to like days or hours of like, we have money to continue our program, or we need to close our organization until we get more funding. And I think that the general public, or even organization to organization, doesn't have a real sense of how many local organizations rely on federal funding. And for many of them, yes, maybe once the government gets funded, they'll receive back pay, but many of them don't have the liquid cash reserves to maintain operations. They are living paycheck to paycheck, and that's a really precarious position for us to live in, and it's a reality of nonprofit work.
Yeah, and to build on that, and Ashley probably knows as much about this, way more about this than I do, but in my Vistage group, there are 2 companies. One employs about 10 people, one about 25, that rely on a lot of business coming out of the Naval Base Ventura County. When those projects are not funded because of, the inability of the government to, offer a reliable source of funding, those businesses don't expand. Those businesses lose money. Those businesses, instead of hiring, start to cut back. And multiply those 2 folks in my group by hundreds, a factor of hundreds. Ashley, I'm sure you have people in the chamber who rely on the base for this. It's got a tremendous effect on our local economy when the federal government can't figure out, how to budget for the long term.
Yep. Well, thank you very much. Glad you were here. Who
Always.
else has Oh, hello, friend. I see you. Oh, but you appeared on my Zoom. Hello, how you doing?
Oh, there you go. I'm doing well, and you all?
We're good. We're good. What
Thank
you
you
got?
for. Yeah, I think, it was really great. I got an opportunity to meet with your team last week. Was it last week? It all blurs together. And it was so fantastic to have that reminder that you don't have to go at it alone. So I think that's kind of my perspective for 2024, is that especially when you're a small nonprofit like us and you're poised for growth, that there is a cap that you hit. And I was really grateful we met as a board over the weekend and our board saw that. So it's good to ask for help sometimes. So I guess that's my prediction or my lesson learned as I go into 2024.
I love that. And I feel too, the people who are drawn to mission focused work, we're resilient and we can do it and we can handle it. But yes, there's a limit. There at some point, you are full, you are done, you have done everything you can possibly do. Yeah, so that asking for help, remembering that we're a community and a network, and yeah, we're not at it alone. Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, anybody else? Last chance. Lessons learned or predictions, questions, comments? All right. Well, I think we've done it, solved. So Happy New Year, everyone, and wishing you all the best. See you later.